Welcome to the Vibe Coders Manual, Episode 3, brought to you by AI, backed by lots of research, how you turn Vibe revenue into real revenue.
It is really fantastic to be back today. I mean, we are tackling something that I think a lot of people are just completely misinterpreting right now.
We absolutely are. And this deep dive, your guide to AI-powered MVP development, is about the principles and tools of vibe coding, which is an intuitive approach to software development, where individuals use AI agents to build applications without extensive manual programming.
Yeah, and if you have been on GitHub or X or really any developer Discord over the last few months, you have definitely seen this term vibe coding thrown around everywhere.
Oh, for sure. And I have to admit, the first time I saw it, I kind of, I rolled my eyes a little bit. It sounds like, coding while listening to lo-fi beats or just sort of vibing until an app magically appears on your screen.
It definitely has that casual, almost dismissive branding, doesn't it? It sounds
Yeah.
like you are just hanging out doing nothing. But when we actually dug into the sources for this deep dive, specifically the GitHub guides and the industry analysis we pulled, it became very clear that vibe coding is actually a really rigorous discipline.
It really is. It is a fundamental shift in the human role, honestly.
Exactly. It is a shift from I am the typist to I am the orchestrator.
Right. You are moving from being the person stressing over a missing semicolon or a misaligned div to the person directing a whole team of AI agents, like Cursor or Claude or Riplet.
And you are directing them to build the application for you. That distinction is just vital. We are bridging a gap today. I mean, most of you listening are highly technical.
You know what a variable is. You know how to deploy a server.
Yeah, you know what an API endpoint looks like. But the gap we are addressing is the one between I can generate code and I can build a viable business.
Because as we found in the research from a really brutal analysis by build..com, just because you can build anything in a weekend now.
Absolutely does not mean you should.
That is going to be our mantra for the first part of this show. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. We are going to unpack the nice-to-have trap, which I think kills more AI projects than actual bugs do.
Oh, without a doubt.
Toto.
And we are going to look at the three-way tooling war right now between Cursor, the new Claude Code, and Replit.
And we are going to get into the really nitty-gritty technical stuff too. Things like the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and how to integrate Stripe without getting your API keys stolen by a bot.
It is a packed agenda. We really need to go deep because the surface level advice is everywhere, but the actual execution details are where people always get stuck.
Always. So let's start with the mindset, the vibe coder mindset. I was reading through the GitHub guide on this, and they talk about vibing with the AI.
Which again sounds fluffy.
It does. But they break it down into three very specific, very non-negotiable principles.
Right. It is not casual at all. The first principle they list is clarity first.
Clarity first.
Yeah, think of the AI as a mirror. If you stand in front of it and give it garbage instructions, it is going to reflect garbage code right back at you.
The days of vague prompting are completely over. You cannot just say, make me a website.
No, you have to be the architect. You can't just wave your hands around. You have to say, make me a Next.js dashboard using the app router with the sidebar navigation using these specific colors.
And adhering to these specific linting rules.
Exactly. The more specific you are, the less the AI has to guess. And this is a theme we will definitely return to, because when AI guesses...
It usually hallucinates.
It does, which leads to the second principle, iterative control.
And this is where I see so many smart developers fail. They get excited, right? They open the prompt window and they say, build me a clone of Facebook, go.
And the context window just explodes.
It crashes. The AI creates a total mess.
It literally forgets what it wrote at the top of the file by the time it gets to the bottom. So the principle of iterative control is about breaking tasks into atomic steps.
You ask for the header, you verify the header works.
Then and only then do you ask for the sidebar, then the database connection. You are building a brick wall, one brick at a time. You are not trying to 3D print the whole house in 10 seconds.
Which requires patience. It is highly ironic because we use AI for speed.
It is a paradox, for sure. You have to slow down your prompting to speed up your shipping. If you rush the prompt, you spend 3 hours debugging.
But if you take 5 minutes to structure the prompt, you spend 0 time debugging.
Exactly. And that leads directly to the third principle, which I think is the most important for both legal and sanity reasons.
Human oversight.
Yes, this is the safety rail. The AI suggests code, but the human decides. You refine it. You cannot abdicate responsibility.
You are the editor-in-chief.
You are. If the AI writes a security vulnerability like leaving a database open to the public and you approve it because you didn't read it, that is entirely on you. The AI doesn't go to jail. You do.
That is a very sobering thought. You are still the one on the hook. But let's pivot to the business side of this mindset.
Because we have this superpower now, we can build incredibly fast.
We can. But the source from .build.com did this really deep analysis of why startups are failing, specifically in this new era where building is so cheap.
That was a fascinating read. They analyzed 21 different startup ideas that failed, and the patterns were incredibly consistent.
The biggest trap is complexity, isn't it?
It is. Because developers can build complex features easily now, they build everything. The report called it the nice-to-have trap.
I really want to drill into this because I feel like I've fallen into this trap before. Give us a concrete example of a nice-to-have failure from their data set.
Okay, take the case study of AI meal prep for tiny kitchens.
AI meal prep for tiny kitchens. That sounds oddly specific.
It is very specific. And on paper, maybe it sounds cool. You take a photo of your fridge and it tells you what to cook.
Okay.
But it scored a 48 out of 100 on their potential scale. And here's why. The actual problem is making a sandwich in a dorm room. Does that problem require a large language model?
Yeah.
Does it require a vector database? No. You are overbuilding complexity for a simple problem. It is a solution looking for a problem.
It's tech for tech's sake. Look, I used AI to tell me to put peanut butter on the bread.
Precisely. And users feel that immediately. They won't pay for it. The friction of using the app is higher than the friction of just making the food yourself.
That makes total sense. What was another one?
Another example was remote work retreats.
That seems plausible. I see those ads on Instagram all the time.
It does sound plausible until you look at the reality of the market. The assumption was that digital nomads, people who work from laptops, would pay a premium for these curated high-end workspaces.
But they don't.
Right. Digital nomads are often optimizing for cost. They are trying to make their runway last as long as possible. They just want cheap, fast Wi-Fi and good coffee.
So the business failed because it added layers of cost.
Yes. Curated events, fancy desks, community managers, things that the user didn't actually value enough to pay for.
I saw another one in the dataset about an influencer affiliate web app.
Oh, right. That one was painful to read because the code was probably beautiful. They built this massive platform for influencers to track their links across different campaigns.
But it turned out to be just a glorified link tree.
Exactly. The critique in the analysis was brutal. Why would I pay $20 a month for a complex sauce when I can use a free tool that already exists and does the exact same job?
Ouch.
It is the nice-to-have trap perfectly illustrated. It looks good, it feels like a startup, you feel productive building it, but nobody pulls out their credit card.
So how do we fix this? Because we are here to turn Vibe revenue into real revenue. The source mentioned a fixed framework. How do we avoid building the Tinder for pets?
Tinder for Pets scored an 18 out of 100, by the way. Please do not build that.
Duly noted.
The fixed framework is ruthless. It says you have to watch exactly one metric, customer willingness to pay for core features.
Yeah.
Not the side features, the core.
So if they won't pay for the main thing, the side things simply don't matter.
Exactly. If the core value proposition isn't strong enough to open a wallet, no amount of AI features will save it. And the advice is to pivot from boiling the ocean, trying to build generalist tools for everyone, to what they call boring but profitable.
Boring but profitable. I like that. It sounds very sustainable.
Think about compliance moats. Think about regulated industries, healthcare data processing, legal document sorting, supply chain logistics.
Things that are tedious, painful, and expensive to do manually.
That is where the vibe coder should look. If it sounds boring, it probably makes money.
That is such a key takeaway. The flashiest AI demo usually makes $0, while the boring AI script that automates a spreadsheet for an accountant makes millions.
100%. The vibe should be in the coding process, not necessarily in the product. The product should be a utility.
Okay, so we have the mindset down. Be specific, iterate, oversee the AI, and build boring, profitable things. Now let's talk tools, because this landscape is shifting incredibly fast. We have a three-way battle royale going on right now between Cursor, Claude Code, and Riplet.
It is a really fascinating time to be a developer because these three tools aren't just competitors. They represent three very different philosophies about how code should be written.
Let's start with Cursor. I feel like everyone I know in the dev world is using Cursor right now. It is the darling of the moment.
Cursor is the speed demon. According to the comparison data from prodmgmt.world and the Replit blog, Cursor dominates in what we call greenfield development. That means starting from scratch with a blank page.
And the barrier to entry is extremely low because it looks so familiar.
Right. It is literally a fork of VS Code. So if you've used VS Code, which almost everyone has, you already know exactly how to use Cursor. You don't have to learn a new interface. All your extensions work. Your themes work.
But the real magic is in the autocomplete.
Yes, their proprietary model, specifically the Composer 1 model, the data shows it's about 4 times faster than Claude's Sonnet 4.5 for those rapid inline edits.
4 times faster is huge.
It has sub-second autocomplete. The workflow is very GUI heavy. You type a little, guesses the rest, you hit tab, you type tab. It feels like the editor is reading your mind.
It just flows.
It flows beautifully. If you want to get that first MVP out in a weekend, which we will discuss a bit later, Cursor is statistically about 10 times faster for that initial burst of creation. It keeps you in the zone.
Okay, so Cursor's for speed, familiarity, and flow. But then we have this new contender, Claude Code. Now, this is slightly confusingly named because we know Claude as the model from Anthropic, but this is actually an interface.
Right. Claude Code is Anthropic's official CLI or command line interface. This is for a completely different kind of user. This isn't for the person who wants to click buttons. This is for the person who wants deep reasoning.
Deep reasoning. Explain the difference between that and what Cursor does.
Cursor is great at add a button here or change this color. It predicts the next few lines. Claude Code excels at refactor, this entire authentication flow across 6 different files because we are changing our security protocol.
That is a much heavier lift.
It is. It uses a massive 200,000 token context window, and it uses it very efficiently. The comparison showed that Claude Code wins on first try accuracy.
First try accuracy. That is a massive metric to track.
It is the difference between it working immediately and you spending an hour debugging the AI's mistake. In viral tests, Claude Code had 0 errors on complex architectural tasks where other tools stumbled or hallucinated.
And interestingly, the report mentioned cost. Usually the smarter models are much more expensive.
Yes. But here, efficiency plays a huge role. Because Claude Code is so efficient with context, it knows what to read and what to ignore. It is surprisingly cost-effective. For similar complex tasks, Claude Code used about 33,000 tokens.
And what do the others use?
Other tools trying to do the exact same thing ballooned to 188,000 tokens because they were inefficient. They just kept rereading the whole code base.
So Claude Code is the heavy lifter. It's the architect.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Cursor is VS Code on steroids. Claude Code is like Vim, or a really powerful terminal agent. It's lightweight, it lives directly in your terminal, but it is incredibly smart.
And then there is the third player, Replit. Replit feels like it's trying to be the entire ecosystem in one single box.
Replit is the all-in-one cloud IDE. The Replit blog highlights their Agent 3. This is an autonomous agent. It doesn't just write code. It writes tests and fixes its own code iteratively.
Wait, it fixes its own code? That feels like a major leap.
Yes, it is. You give it a prompt, and it enters a loop. It writes the code, tries to run it in the background, sees an error, reads the error, rewrites the code, and runs it again.
Wow.
Does this until it works. You, the human, might just see the final result.
That is getting very close to actual human behavior.
It really is. And the big differentiator for Replit is the infrastructure. With Cursor or Claude Code, you have the code, but you still have to figure out where to host it.
You have to push to GitHub, connect to Vercel, set up AWS.
Right. With Replit, you click Run, and it is live. It has built-in hosting and deployment.
So if I am a total beginner or I just don't want to deal with setting up a server, Replit is the answer.
Ideally, yes. Replit is 0 setup. Open the browser and start coding.
What about the cost, though? Because we are trying to turn revenue here, not burn it.
Replit works on effort-based pricing. The core plan is around $25 a month, but that includes the hosting.
And Cursor.
Cursor is $20 a month for the AI features, but you have to bring your own hosting, so you might be paying Vercel or AWS on top of that.
Got it. So to summarize, Cursor for speed and control, Claude Code for deep reasoning and complex refactoring, Replit for the all-in-one, just make it work experience.
That is the landscape right now. And honestly, a lot of pros use a mix. They might scaffold the app in Cursor because it's fast, and then use Claude Code to do a massive refactor later.
Okay. So let's say you have picked your tool. I am a Cursor guy, personally. I really like the speed. But now you need a tech stack. The source from Katie Nuggets had a very strong opinion on this. They basically said, don't fight the AI.
This is the golden rule of vibe coding. Use a stack that the AI understands perfectly. If you pick some obscure brand new framework that came out last week, the AI has no training data on it.
It will hallucinate.
It will fail. You will be miserable.
So what is the KD Nuggets recommended stack? What is the path of least resistance?
It is a very specific list. For the front end, they say Next.js with the app router combined with Shadcn UI.
Why Shadcn specifically? I do see it everywhere.
Because Shadcn isn't a library in the traditional sense. It uses pre-built components that are copy-pastable. The code lives directly in your project.
Oh, so the AI can see it.
Exactly. The AI knows exactly how to implement a Shadcn button or card because the code is public and standardized. It is not a black box library. It is just code you own.
That makes a lot of sense. And for the backend?
They recommend server actions and root handlers within Next.js. This keeps your backend logic right next to your front-end code. It reduces boilerplate.
That extra code you usually have to write just to connect things together.
Right. AI excels when the context is close together. If the button and the logic for the button are in the same file or folder, the AI makes far fewer mistakes.
What about the database?
Supabase, specifically for PostgreSQL.
Okay, this brings us to a bit of a debate in the sources. We had a piece from Zapier comparing Supabase and Firebase. For years, Firebase was the absolute go-to for quick apps. Why is the recommendation shifting towards Supabase for vibe coding?
It all comes down to structure. Supabase is SQL-based. It is relational. You have tables, columns, strict relationships.
And AI likes structure.
AI absolutely loves structure. It is very easy for an AI to write a perfect SQL query because the rules of SQL are rigid. Select star from users where ID equals X. It is unambiguous.
And Firebase?
Firebase is no SQL. It is a document store. It is basically a big JSON tree. It is very flexible, but sometimes too flexible.
That was so.
The Zapier comparison notes that Firebase is great for chat apps or unstructured data, but for a typical SaaS, the data can get messy quickly. You end up with duplicate data everywhere.
And there was a point about security in that source, right?
Yes. Supabase is row-level security, or RLS. This is essential for multi-tenant apps. Apps where user A shouldn't see user B's data.
And AI is good at writing those rules.
Very good. AI is very good at writing RLS policies in SQL. It can write a rule that says only allow access if the user ID matches the owner ID. In Firebase, writing those security rules can be a bit more esoteric and error-prone for the AI.
Okay, so Supabase wins on structure and security generation. What else is in this ideal stack?
Stripe for payments, obviously. It's the industry standard. Resend for transactional email. Again, a very simple API that AI understands perfectly. And Vercel for deployment because it keeps your previews and production aligned.
It is a solid stack, but even with a perfect stack, we do run into problems. And this is where it gets really technical. We have to talk about hallucinations.
It's the bane of every vibe coder's existence.
I was reading the LogRocket article, and they gave this very specific example of the AI suggesting a button loading equals true prop for a Shadcn component.
Right. And if you know Shadcn or if you check the docs, you know that prop absolutely does not exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But the AI sounded so confident making the suggestion.
It always sounds confident. That is the danger. The AI is hallucinating because it is trained on older docs, or maybe it is confusing Shadcn with Material UI or Ant Design, which do have loading props.
It's just guessing.
It's guessing. And when you vibe code, a guess breaks your bill. You get a massive red error screen.
So how do we fix this? The source mentioned something called MCP.
The Model Context Protocol, this is an absolute game changer. Think of it like this. Without MCP, the AI is trying to remember the phone book entirely from memory.
It might get the number right, or it might be off by a digit.
Exactly. With MCP, you are handing the AI the phone book and saying, look up the number right now.
Okay, that is a great analogy.
MCP acts as a live link between the AI agent like Claude or Cursor and the actual live component registry or documentation in your project.
So it can actually see the code in real time.
It can query the current specs. So instead of guessing if the button has a loading prop, it queries the registry via MCP. It sees that loading isn't a prop.
And then it fixes its own approach.
Yes. It sees that the correct way to do it is maybe wrapping the button in a loader component or disabling it and changing the text.
And how do you set this up? Is it complicated? Do you need a degree in computer science to make it work?
It is surprisingly simple, actually. The source gives a command, npx shadcn at latest MCP init. You just run that in your terminal.
And that installs it.
It installs a little server that bridges your project and the AI. That is the core of it. The LogRocket test showed a side-by-side comparison. They used the Gemini CLI without MCP, and it hallucinated props everywhere.
And then with MCP.
They used Claude with MCP, and it generated accurate code. It was even aware of the CSS variables in the specific project. It knew that your primary color was blue 500 and used it correctly.
That is the difference between an app that works out of the box and an app that you spend 6 hours debugging.
Exactly. If you are serious about vibe coding, you need to be using MCP to ground the AI in reality. It completely stops the guessing game.
Okay, so we have got the mindset, the tools, the stack, and we have stopped the hallucinations. Now we need to make money. We need to turn vibe revenue into real revenue.
The Opeachy AI guide on this was fantastic. It focused entirely on integrating Stripe, which intimidates a lot of developers.
It completely intimidates me. There are keys, webhooks, compliance. It is genuinely scary.
It is. But the workflow Opeachy suggests uses orchestrator mode. This is likely using a tool like Code connected to Claude. The concept is brilliant. You have an orchestrator agent that keeps the master plan.
It knows what needs to happen.
Right. It knows we need a pricing page, a checkout, and a webhook.
And then what does it do?
Then it delegates. It spins up subagents to execute specific tasks. Subagent A write the pricing component. Subagent B write the webhook handler.
That prevents the context window from getting clogged up with too much code at once.
That's smart. Divide and conquer. But the real gold in this source was the documentation step. The advice is to have the AI write a Stripe setup.md file specifically for your project.
Wait, the AI writes the manual for you?
Yes. You ask the AI, create a step-by-step guide to setting up Stripe for this specific app. It will tell you exactly which keys to copy and where to paste them.
That is incredible.
And this is the critical gotcha from the source. It helps you distinguish between the product ID and the price ID.
Oh, the product ID versus price ID. I have heard this is a total nightmare.
It is a classic failure point for developers. You set up a product in Stripe, say a Pro plan. It has an ID like prod123.
Okay.
But the API usually doesn't want the product ID. It wants the ID of the price attached to that product, which looks like price 456.
And if you use the wrong one?
The checkout just fails. The AI, if guided correctly, will explicitly tell you copy the price ID, which starts with price, not the product ID.
That one tip alone is worth the price of admission. If you mix those up, your users click buy and literally nothing happens.
Exactly. Another big failure point is webhooks. You need to know if the payment actually cleared right. Just because they went to Stripe doesn't mean the card actually worked.
Right, otherwise you are giving the product away for free.
Yeah. The AI can write the webhook listener to toggle user access. But testing webhooks locally is hard because Stripe can't see your local host environment.
Oh.
The guide emphasizes using Stripe's test cards in dev mode. Do not use your real credit card.
Please do not use your real credit card in dev mode. You will charge yourself, you will pay fees, and it is a massive mess.
And when you finally go live, this is the turning vibe into revenue part. You have to copy your products to live mode in Stripe. They don't copy over automatically.
Good to know.
And then the crucial step, swap the API keys in your hosting provider like Vercel or Realway.
And do not hardcode the keys.
Never ever hardcode keys. Use .env files. The GitHub guide was very specific on this. If you hardcode keys and push to GitHub, bots will steal them in seconds.
I have seen that happen.
I have seen developers wake up to thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges because they committed a key to a public repo.
Terrifying. Just use environment variables, people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a path to revenue. Now I want to talk about execution speed. The source vibe coding, your MVP, lays out a weekend MVP roadmap. It claims you can get a clickable proof in one single weekend.
It is a very aggressive, very practical roadmap. It starts with some interesting math, the free limit math.
I loved this part. It is basically, how far can I get without spending a dime?
Exactly. Let's look at the actual numbers. Vercel gives you 100 gigabytes of bandwidth. Supabase gives you a 500 megabyte database. Clerk for Authentication gives you 5,000 monthly active users completely for free.
5,000 users. If I have 5,000 users, I'm incredibly happy to start paying.
Exactly. That is the entire logic of the roadmap. You don't pay until you have traction. So the roadmap starts with step 1. Hire GPT as your co-founder.
Hire GPT. I like the framing of that.
You use a specific prompt. Act as my technical co-founder, ask me 3 key questions. This forces you to clarify your vision before you write a single line of code. It stops you from building features nobody wants.
Then you move to the one-page spec.
Just the core value loop. Action leads to payoff. Don't write a 20-page document. Just define the core interaction.
And then the cursor kickoff.
You prompt cursor to scaffold the project. I want Next.js tailwind, and boom, you have a file structure. But here's the step I found most refreshing. The break things phase.
The break things phase. Usually tutorials tell you specifically not to break things.
This guide is different. It says once the app is running locally, go in and manually change the text. Change the colors, delete a line, and see what crashes.
Why do that, though? That sounds completely counterproductive.
To understand the structure, you need to know that this specific file controls that specific button. If you don't understand that you are just a passenger, breaking it forces you to become the mechanic. You need to know where the engine is.
That is deep. You have to break it to own it.
And then finally, you integrate auth using Clerk or Supabase and deploy to Vercel or Replit. The goal is a live link in the group chat by Sunday night.
A live link. That is the holy grail for a weekend project.
And remember the best practices from the GitHub guide regarding context management. If the AI gets confused, reset the context. Start a new chat. Don't try to save a doomed conversation.
It is like a bad relationship. Just break up and start over.
Exactly. Cut your losses early. And use think hard or think deep prompts if you are using a reasoning model like Claude. Tell it to take its time. It really helps.
So we've covered the mindset, the tools, the stack, the technical, fixes the payment integration, and the weekend roadmap. It really feels like the barrier to entry has completely collapsed.
It has. The floor has been lowered significantly. Anyone can build an app now.
What?
But the ceiling has been raised. Because everyone can build their app, simply having an app is no longer a business. It is no longer impressive just to exist.
That brings us to our final provocative thought for this deep dive.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture, the winners won't be the ones who write the best code. The winners will be the ones who use these tools, Replit, Agent 3, Cursor Claude, to solve the most boring, compliance-heavy, revenue-generating problem.
The boring stuff.
The stuff that requires understanding a specific industry, not just understanding React. The barrier to entry is gone, but the barrier to value is higher than ever.
That is a powerful thought to leave on. Don't just build value.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening. The next episode is right around the corner. You can find nifty slides about this episode and a transcript on vibecodersmanual.com. Keep coding to turn Vibe revenue into real revenue.